Friday's inflation was a little bit flat, a little bit of increase, but nothing shocking. But here's what nobody's talking about. The White House just ordered agencies, federal agencies, to prepare mass permanent job cuts if the government shuts down. Now, listen, this is not a furlough. This is not a delay. This is permanent layoffs that are on the table right now. And that hits unemployment. It hits the job market. It hits the U.S. economy overall. And yes, it could have an effect and trickle down to your own household. So it matters even if you don't work for the federal government. So let's break it down on this video. Now, what is a government shutdown? A government shutdown simply happens when Congress fails to pass funding bills or a continuing resolution, which you might hear on the news called a CR. Now, Congress usually has all year to pass funding bills for certain agencies. But every year we get to the end of the federal government's fiscal year, which ends September 30th every year, when we have these threats of government shutdowns that happen, right? Seems like on a regular basis, yearly nowadays. So in plain English, guys, federal government agencies, they don't have the authority to spend money without these appropriation bills being passed in Congress. So the government has to shut down until these bills are passed. And then many of the federal government agencies will then have the authority to spend money. Now, in past federal government shutdowns, federal workers were furloughed, they were sent home, some of them not paid, but usually they're given back pay later. Essential workers usually keep working unpaid while the shutdown goes on. And agencies, federal agencies, typically they slow down to a crawl, not much activity during a shutdown because there's no money to spend. But this time, guys, it feels a little different. The White House's OMB, Office of Management and Budget, just told federal agencies to draft RIF plans, RIF plans, or reduction in force plans. Now, that means permanent firings. Now, that's not normal, typically. And to me, that sounds like escalation. Now, again, why is the government shutting down? Why are we here again like we're always here? Simply because Congress has not passed spending bills. And the Trump administration wants a budget that cuts programs that are aligned with its priorities. And then you have Democrats who want to preserve things like health care subsidies, Medicaid protections, social spending, right? Neither side wants to blink or budge. You have House Republicans who passed a stopgap bill, right? And the Senate came out and blocked that. And now the White House says, identify which jobs are going to get cut if the government shutdown happens. It's almost like a government shutdown is a good reason to trim some of the government workforce, right? Now, is this just a threat? Who knows, right? You have President Trump blaming Democrats, and you have Democrats who say President Trump is holding jobs hostage and is just making a threat, right? But how will this affect jobs? Let's talk about jobs because that's what's important to us. And here's the scary part here. Federal workers in past shutdowns were furloughed. And when that happens, oftentimes they show up as unemployed in the household surveys that made unemployment rates go higher. And then, of course, that reversed when the furlough was over and we'd see unemployment come back down. But this time, we're not just talking about furloughs here, guys. We're talking about permanent cuts. Now, you have unions out there. The SEC union told its staff, hey, don't expect mass layoffs just yet, right? Protocols look similar to past shutdowns, right? But other agency leaders are warning that this is real. Now, the first people who are going to feel it is going to be contractors. If you have a federal government contractor, you know somebody who does, they're going to have work potentially halted, right? And stopped. Invoices may go unpaid. Staff is going to be sent home. Travel kind of slows down, right? All these things happen in a shutdown, during a shutdown. And you got areas of the country like DC, Maryland, Virginia, who's already warning of thousands of job cuts and job loss. Now, listen, remember, 2025, guys, has already seen mass federal layoffs. Everybody knows at least one or two people who were working for the federal government on January 1st, 2025, who's no longer working for the federal government, right? The Supreme Court cleared the way recently for even more federal cuts. And the federal government has had a hiring freeze since January of this year. Now, listen, layer in on top of all of this, you had Friday's PCE inflation report, right? The headline numbers came at 2.7% year over year increase in inflation. But we had that sticky core PCE inflation. Now, core PCE inflation is where they subtract energy and food. And that was up at 2.9% just Friday, a couple of days ago, right? Now, month over month, inflation's up 0.3% and 0.2% for headline and core, which means inflation is going up the wrong direction, right? So prices are still grinding up higher and higher. And then you add in this shocker of potential federal government layoffs, and you have a lot going on, a lot to be leery about, right? So what does all this mean for consumers? This isn't just a Washington, D.C., Virginia area drama, right? To me, this is something that could affect all of us, right? Every time Congress fails to fund government, investors demand more yield, right? Borrowing costs tend to rise. Credit ratings are already hit at this point, guys. Think about it like this. In August of 2023, when I was doing these updates right here on YouTube, Fitch came out and downgraded the U.S. credit rating from a AAA to AA plus. And then just in May, Moody's downgraded the federal credit rating also. Now, why does that matter that the U.S. federal government's credit rating is downgraded? It matters a lot because both of those times, back in 2023 and in 2025, both times they cited government failures and ballooning debt, right? Debt out of control as reasons for downgrading the U.S. federal government's credit. Now, what does that mean for us? It means that borrowing costs for everyone's mortgages go up when the U.S. credit rating is downgraded. Credit card interest go up. So here's the reality. The United States' federal debt right now is over $37 trillion. Now, mind you, 2 years ago, when I first started doing these updates on YouTube, the federal government's debt was only about $33 trillion. So we're talking about massive debt increasing in a short amount of time. And every 6 months, we see the same old thing. Possible government shutdown, possible government dysfunction, right? Stopgaps. Omnibus bills. Now, what is an omnibus bills? You'll see that, and it might happen this time. Omnibus bills just means Congress bundles dozens of agencies' budgets into one big old monster bill that's huge. And usually these big old bills called omnibus bills, they have little stuff trickled in there that makes it difficult to find and see because the bill is usually 1,000 pages or more long. That's an omnibus bill. It's a big old bill with all the federal appropriations from all the agencies lopped into it. And they usually pass that omnibus bill after we have this type of scare of a government shutdown, just to keep the lights on. Same thing with a continuing resolution. Continuing resolutions just kick the can down the road a little bit further and keeps the government open while they have time to get these appropriation bills funded and passed through Congress. But again, the problem with these big old bills and these CRs is the fact that they usually have stuffed all in them, trade-offs, riders, and all these things stuffed in the bill that is not really the bill that should be passed, right? It's not real budgeting when you just pass an omnibus bill once a year and throw everything in it, right? Listen, if you're a federal worker or contractor, your income could be at risk. If you're not, you may still feel it, right? Tax refunds could be delayed. Passports could be delayed. Benefits could be delayed. And your cost of borrowing creeps up, right? So while inflation keeps food, rent, and utilities high, we're still sticky with the core PCE, still not near the 2% that the Fed wanted. We all could feel this. Listen, so what do? Here's the smart moves that you can make, right? Stack some cash, perhaps move some of your cash into T-bills or something a little more fixed, and also consider some other streams of income. I always tell you this, guys, but you want to consider a little bit of additional streams of income to help you out, right? $200 or $300 or $400 could go a long way for a lot of households. And then in terms of debt, try to pay down your debt, especially your high interest debt. But any debt on anything that's not increasing in value is not good debt. It's bad debt. So you want to consider paying off your debt as soon as possible and holding off on any big purchases for now, right? Let's just see what happens with this shutdown. The problem comes in when everybody just sees these things on the news and they keep living life like nothing's changed. They see high inflation and they keep spending like it doesn't matter. What I'm telling you is it matters. And this is not to scare you, but it's to say, look, pay attention. Things are happening behind the scenes and in front of your face that you need to know about as an investor, as a consumer, as an employee. You need to know these things. Now, here's what to watch next, and here's what I'm watching. Does Congress move on a clean funding bill in the next few days before September 30th to avoid a government shutdown? Now, a government shutdown never looks good in terms of politics for either side. And that's why you have both sides coming out blaming each other right now, because they want to make sure that in case the government does get shut down, they got an alibi. Oh, we passed this bill, but they didn't want to pass this bill. Well, we're looking for that bill, and they wanted this bill, right? All of this catfighting and infighting in Congress is because they're trying to save face. But here's something else I'm watching. Which unions push back on this idea or this notion of these mass federal government layoffs, right? Because like a lot of things, that may end up going to higher and higher courts if we do see these mass federal layoffs like was ordered by the White House. Now, the next jobs report, the next CPI report, inflation, and the next October PCE inflation report. Those are going to be important to watch also. Also, Treasury yields. If they go way up, that means money's going to cost us more to borrow. And by the way, that's part of the reason we saw the Fed come out a week or so ago and cut rates, because the Fed was watching all the things that we're looking at, right? So the Fed says we want to encourage you to go out and spend some money because we see some problems on the horizon. Primarily what the Fed said was it was unemployment that we see and these jobs and labor reports that we see. So we're going to go ahead and cut rates now so that we can avoid some of the further issues. And also, don't think the Fed wasn't looking at the potential of a U.S. government shutdown as well, just 2 weeks after they had their meeting. But here's the deal. Inflation is still sticky, still high, and it's going up slightly, right? But inflation didn't really spark the fireworks this past week. But it was Congress not having an appropriation bill passed and the White House coming out and raising the stakes with this declaration of mass layoffs if a government shutdown happens. So listen, mass layoffs for federal government workers is back on the table. Don't wait for the headlines to hit your paycheck, right? Get ahead of this thing. Make your changes now in what you're doing to manage your own household. Now listen, if you want step-by-step guidance, my Smart Money Bro 4-step system shows you how to end money stress and build wealth with intention. VIP early access is open right now for my brand new course, The 4 Steps to Maximize Your Money. If you click on the link below, you'll lock in the lowest price before it goes up, and you'll be the first in line to get the full system that changed my life. If this video gave you any value, do me a favor, smash that like button below. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And drop your biggest financial fear in the comment. Let me know where you stand on some of the issues that we're talking about. Hey, the best person who's going to take care of the old you is the young you. Guys, take good care of yourself and take care of other people. Until the next video, peace.